Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment. We're going to see if we can connect to one of our two Facebook pages the old fashioned way, the way we've been doing it for years and years, that has not worked the last few days. So far, it looks okay. Let me make sure Instagram's dialed. The Meta platform's been giving us some problems the last week or so, as you guys know, but we're almost there. We're almost there. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, there's a lot we're going to get into tonight relative to Broncos-Falcons, some injury stuff, but first things first, dude. Bo Nix stacking the rookie accolades. Named NFL Rookie of the Week. I mean, he's got to be feeling pretty good, even though it's coming on the heels of what was, of course, a heartbreaking, brutal loss.
Yeah, it's also coming on the heels of him winning Rookie of the Month in October. If you don't want to believe it by the tape, I guess, then believe it by the awards that he's, like you said, stacking up now. He is getting better. He outdueled, for my money, Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead. He played probably his best, most complete game of the season, deserved to win that, made several clutch throws, had ice in his veins. I'm really excited, Chad. The Broncos have a franchise quarterback. There's no bones about it.
That is something we 100% agree on. I'm so stoked on Bo Nix, and I'm so thrilled for Broncos fans to finally have a young dog at that, at the most important position on the field. We got the Papa Bear checking in. David McElrath, what's good, big dog? Early, of course, as is his way, checking in with a super chat. Thank you, brother. And by the way, sorry for being as late as we were tonight. I've been having at the office here some internet difficulties with my provider. They're doing some new digging, running some new lines. Wasn't supposed to affect current customers, and lo and behold, it did. So hopefully everything goes smooth here from here on out. But Papa Bear says, good evening, Broncos country, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag God bless the USA 10-7. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life, Buckham ×3. Thank you, brother. So good to see you. Let's start conjuring some positive juju like David's doing for this Broncos-Falcons game. Sam Bam, brother, also jumping in early. Thank you, bud. Says, evening, Broncos country. Let's get back in the win column on Sunday. Go Broncos. I mean, Zach, if it wasn't bad enough to get blown out as the Broncos did in Baltimore, then to lose at unacceptable, absolutely insufferable last second against the Chiefs, right? Now you're at risk, Zach, of dropping 3 in a row. You can live with 2 in a row here and there if you're going to be a relatively competitively viable team, Zach. Broncos overcame an 0-2 hole earlier this year. They can't allow an 0-3. This is going to be a huge, huge game.
Yeah, when we were talking about the schedule, I figured maybe they'd go 0-2 because they're 2 tough opponents. The Broncos might not be there yet, and look what happened. They went 0. I figured, though, with the Atlanta game, they should win this. I felt this way about the Saints, about Carolina, about the Raiders the first time. The Broncos are a better team, and they should beat Atlanta, especially on offense. This could be an offensive breakout for Bo Nix, the game we've all been looking for. They can't get after the quarterback. They can't protect the quarterback either. The Falcons are hanging in there, and Kirk Cousins is having a good season. They have some talent, but Chad, at home, coming off 2 bitter losses, there's no reason why the Broncos shouldn't win this game.
Max Rue? Or is it Rio? I want to say it's Rue. Like you're making a Rue, maybe. It's spelled different, obviously. But jumping in, north of the 49th parallel up in Canada. Thank you, bro. He says, evening, Broncos country from Manitoulin. How did you, what was it, Zach? Manitoulin? Manitoulin? You looked it up the other night.
I didn't look up the pronunciation. Manitoulin? I don't know. We'll have to let us know, Max.
Max, you got to tell us, all right? If you're going to keep dropping the name in the chat, you got to help you boys out here. Just kidding, but not really. Many truths are said in jest. Let's get this win, he says, and sweep the NFC South. Hashtag go Broncos. Yeah, this is it, man. You beat the Falcons. Sean Payton's Broncos have swept the NFC South, Zach.
And I can't remember the record top of my head, but historically he's fared very well against the Falcons in the past. And I know it was in New Orleans, it was different, but he's had good luck this season so far. And like Max is saying here, he's looking to break the broom out, and he should. Again, there's no reason why the Broncos shouldn't win this game, Chad.
Got to win this one. And, it's the NFL. So the Falcons, they're saying the same thing. Hey, we just lost they had their own embarrassing loss. We just lost. We can't afford to lose this game. So it's the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, so to speak. Michaela Parker, the Duchess, jumping in. Love you, Michaela. She says, I'm going to start a petition. Hashtag pay Bolles. I want to keep the O-line together to keep up Nix's development. Bolles is a dog. Yeah, that's been a common theme from MHH the last few weeks. You've probably noticed too, Michaela, on the written articles and stuff, is guys like Bob and Nick and Eric advocating for the Broncos to take care of that. But Zach, this deep into the season, do you foresee another in-season extension forthcoming, like the Broncos did with, say, Jonathan Cooper and Bolles before, right back in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were going to pay Garrett, it would have happened already, similar to how they got Cortland Sutton taken care of before the season. They're letting Garrett play out his contract and then going from there. I guess I'm open to it, Michaela, if they want to do a 1 or 2 year deal, not crazy guaranteed money. But regardless, I've been saying this literally for years. If they pay Bolles or not, you have to start looking at developing that next left tackle. Maybe it's a Palcho kicking over to the left side, but you have to have a succession plan in place, because I think Garrett Bolles' best years, if there were any, Chad, are behind him now.
That's statistically probable. His best years at his age are behind him, but he's also a young, what is he, 33? I got to remind myself how old this dude is. Hold on.
Hasn't really gotten a lot better.
He's a young 32, so he's going to be 33. Got started late. We all know the story, but this is not a conversation Zach and I have always traditionally shared a brain on, but I generally concur with you, Michaela, that when you look at some of Nick's done a good job, Eric and Bob, they've all done a good job showing the value that Garrett Bolles is bringing to the team right now relative to the tackle market in terms of quality of play across the NFL, and then what teams value that out at money-wise. And if the Broncos, here's just a preview, basically. I'll distill it down into a simple preview. If the Broncos don't get Garrett Bolles extended, they're creating a headache for themselves, because if they let him hit free agency, they're going to have to compete with other teams. They already know he's going to have a nice 20+ million probably per year market out there. And then, we want to see what the market is, whatever. Maybe we'll franchise tag him. Then you're still paying through the nose. Do something now where it's front loaded, like 2 years or whatever. Buy yourself another couple year window. Let Mike McGlinchey finish out his deal on the right side. Keep that bookend. I just think I'm in agreement with you, Michaela. It makes more sense. And Zach, next year, salary cap wise, they have the breathing room to get some of these kind of deals done and still have the arrows in the quiver to go out and bring in some talent.
Here, I'll throw you an olive branch, because we haven't seen eye to eye on Bolles. I'm not opposed to re-signing him, but like the franchise tag, for example, it would pay him the average of the top 5 highest paid tackles. And that's not where I'm willing to go with Garrett Bolles. So I'm open to resigning him. And obviously Sean and George Payton can feel free to govern how they want, but as long as they don't break the bank, as long as they don't reset the market, as long as the guarantees aren't crazy, then yes, I'm open to Garrett Bolles coming back on a short-term deal.
2025 will be Bolles' age 33 season. So that's food for thought. Zeus McPeak in the house. What is up? The first face etched. We've had in consecutive super chats. The first and second faces etched on the MHH super chat superstar Mount Rushmore. Zeus, we love you, big dog. Thank you. He says, hi, all. We have a big challenge with Atlanta. Broncos can do it, but must play clean football. Let's go, Broncos and Bo. We finally have our QB. Yes, sir, and well said. We'll get to the head-to-head tonight, by the way. We'll take a peek at how these two teams measure up, the stats and all that. But Zach, the Broncos, the heartbreaking nature of last week is that they played a clean game all the way until the last play, where all the chips were down. That's when they chose not to be clean, and that's why it goes back to, unfortunately, Alex Forsythe, as we foresaw, Zach, is getting pilloried all week long. On one hand, he deserves it. It was him who failed at the point of attack after all. It has been him, Zach, that's fallen 15 of the 22 times a Broncos blocker on kicking unit lands on their rear end. But at the same time, it's on the Broncos coaching staff, including Sean Payton, Ben Kotwika, and Zach Stree, for not identifying that glaring vulnerability that was so obvious to the Chiefs.
And everyone on the Broncos' first field goal or extra point is going to see if Forsythe is out there and how he does, Chad, because it literally cost them the game, as well as the Broncos coaching, as you laid out there. Stu, you're right. The Broncos, they should win this game. They can't lollygag, though. They can't wake up in the third quarter and decide to show up and play football. They're going to have to show up for all four quarters, but the Falcons, I mean, let's be blunt. They're not as good as Kansas City. They're not as good as Baltimore. So the Broncos can get away with a little more, but you want that breakout game. You want that stomping. You want a Saints or Carolina result. You don't want a New York Jets result where it's a 1-point victory and a narrow.
By the way, I like what Bo Nix said about Alex Forsythe yesterday at the podium. I'll just read a little bit of it. He said, quote, "I think it's very unfortunate." Remember, these guys go back to Oregon. So, quote, "I think it's very unfortunate, very unfair that ultimately a play comes down to one moment. People can say that it falls under one person. Nobody prepares like Alex Forsythe prepares. Nobody goes through the moments throughout the week and gets every set, every look that he possibly can to go out there and put his team in the best possible spot. But it's the game we play, etc." He goes on to say basically that I have no doubt he's going to respond probably better than anybody in that situation. He cares more than anybody would in that situation. And I know that our team, every single guy in our locker room believes in him to respond, and that he's been, I'll paraphrase from here on out, Zach Forsythe, according to Nick's, been through a lot of tough stuff in his own personal life that's way tougher than this. And he's overcome it. He's been resilient, and he has faith that he'll overcome this. But if you're the Broncos, I'm sorry. I love hearing that from the quarterback. It's great glue kind of rhetoric from the podium. But if you're the Broncos, dude, you got to do something else there. Put Alex Palczewski there. Put almost anybody. He's your backup center. Let him be your backup center. Don't put him there.
I was going to say, yeah, I respect and appreciate Nick's comments, but they don't really mean much considering he's his teammate now, and Forsythe was his teammate at Oregon too. So what else is he going to say? It's one of those situations. But the problem that we've heard that the Chiefs exposed was that Forsythe was light on his toes. That's a correctable issue both on the player and the coaching staff, and that's why I said everyone's eyes are going to be watching those protection units on Sunday.
The Ronk checking in on Facebook. Love you, big dog. Good to see you. Says, good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Right back at you. Phil McLaughlin down in Tucson checking in as well. Great to see so many legends in tonight's chat. Good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Time to start our home winning streak. 17-10 Broncos. He's predicting it. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Yes, sir. I love it. Thank you, Phil. Eric Flynn checking in with some stars. Thank you, buddy. He says, how far do you guys think we make it this year? As I said, I think it was Monday night, Zach. Looking at the road ahead, there's two games that you could plausibly go, you could flip a coin on, hey, as we've talked about, are these games the Broncos are supposed to win, right? For the most part this year, they've been the team that wins the games they're supposed to win, but they haven't been able to, outside of that East Coast road trip, I guess that balances the scales of the two games that they've lost. I don't know. You could argue whether or not they were supposed to lose that Steelers game, but I'm digressing a little bit. If you look ahead, there's two games, Zach, that kind of are iffy on supposed to win. This one, it's at home, so I'm going to argue that they should win it. And then that road game against the Chargers. The other five opponents, especially considering, Zach, that the Chiefs are probably going to be resting starters in week 18, it's pretty fortuitous, especially considering they're at 5-5 and still in possession of the 7th seed. I think they're in a good position to control how this thing shakes out. Like, I'm going to err on the side of, by the skin of their teeth, wild card.
Yeah, they have the Browns, they have the Colts, they have the Raiders. Obviously, still they have divisional matchups too. It's not going to be easy, but like I saw 17-10 before. Again, this is an opponent like you were talking about should beat. They're having trouble protecting Kirk Cousins. They have, top 10 in pressure rate allowed. He was hit 9 times last week. They're having trouble getting after the quarterback on defense. They don't really have that firepower. Scott jokes around all the time with us about they don't get sacks at all this season. So again, I mean, it's the NFL, anything can happen, but the floor for Denver, I think, is 7-10, and the ceiling is 10-7. In order to reach that ceiling, like Chad was talking about, you have to win the games you're supposed to, this being one of them.
And the question is, too, like, how do they respond off of that emotional way the last game finished? And that's something, too, Zach, real quick. Bo Nix spoke to today saying, quote, on how important this Falcons game is, quote, I think for me at least, and how I've seen our team respond, every game we walk out to and prepare for is the next most important game. Then the next one is going to be even more important than that. Right now, what we have in front of us is we have one game on Sunday that we have to go out there and perform and play well and compete at a high level. And then basically, Zach, to distill it further, they're living and dying 1 week at a time. So their focus is solely on this one. So yes, it's the most important thing is beating the Falcons. But you do have to, the team leadership, not necessarily the players, the coaches, and they got to have that macro view. They got to start paying attention to how the dominoes are falling relative to the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and pretty much you can look at the Broncos being 5-5. Every game going forward is essentially a playoff game for them.
Yeah.
I guess you can afford to drop an NFC a game like Atlanta, but you still want to stack the victories where you can because it's going to get tougher going forward.
For what it's worth, Cynthia Freeland of the NFL.com has the Broncos as the 7 seed predicted ahead of the Bengals. For what it's worth, thank you, Mr. Producer. Lawrence Rivera checking in on Super Chat tonight. Good to see you. Another legendary figure in our community. Says Russell Wilson already has the same number of touchdowns that Kenny Pickett had the entire season last year in 3 games. Let's talk about what? Tea? Coffee?
Yeah, let's spill the tea on Russ and why are we talking about Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson? Like that's the Steelers. Good for us. Let's see if it holds up. That's my opinion on it. Let's see if that persists the rest of the year and he's not carried by the defense. Let's see what he does when the defense isn't performing.
So Russ is 3-0 as a starter this season. He's got a 6-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 730 yards. So far, he's doing exactly what the Steelers hoped he'd be able to do for him. And look, I think that unfortunately, if it's the wrong thing, if you're in any kind of a mindset where you're going, grass is greener, you're looking outside, you're missing the forest for the trees here. You've got Bo Nix, Russell Wilson. I think there was still a little hope for him in the NFL, and you're seeing that he still can do stuff. He's phenomenal experience. But, Zach, he just wasn't a fit for Sean Payton, and Sean Payton weeded that out pretty quickly. So your thoughts?
I was just going to add, when they benched Fields, he had him at 4-2. It wasn't like he's floundering. So it might be something like the system. They have Arthur Smith now as OC. Mike Tomlin's a really, really good coach. He doesn't get enough credit. So good for us, but I want to see it last the rest of the year and maybe into the playoffs, and then I'll believe.
Cody Dub, brother, thank you. Good to see you tonight, big dog. He says, the Falcons haven't won against a good defense. I'm not scared of this game. They barely beat the Saints. Denver should win this pretty easy. Yeah, so that was a loss to the Saints. Did they play him earlier in the season, Scott, yet? So that's what he's probably talking about. Look, Scott, Falcons and Broncos are 7-1 against the NFC South this season, but they're 5-8 against everyone else. So there's actually a lot of similarities about these teams. We'll look at the head-to-head here very soon. But, Zach, let's talk about that injury report real quick before we get too far off track. You have on the Falcons side, it's a laundry list. It's a who's who. I'm looking at, 15 names, maybe more on this injury list. But the names that are curious that popped up yesterday, you had Kirk Cousins with a shoulder and an elbow, limited, but he practiced in full today, Thursday. But the one name that everybody's talking about right now is Darnell Mooney. Zach, no practice Wednesday, or at least it doesn't appear based on the practice report, and then limited today. But if you look at their report, dude, it's long.
I think Mooney has an Achilles too, right? So that's probably not good if he can't get on the field sooner than later. So it'd be a big loss for the Falcons. I always want to beat a team at 100%, but it'd be a break for Denver. No way getting around it. Kirk Cousins will play, though it's something to keep in mind because it is a throwing shoulder and a throwing elbow injury. He's 30 whatever years old, coming off an Achilles last year. The Broncos defense is very ferocious. So maybe Michael Penix is getting a few, off to the side, a few reps and just to be safe this week.
36, by the way, Mr. Kirk Cousins. But yeah, it's a long list. So you have to wonder how that comes out in the wash on game day, but it's the NFL. They had, for example, 6 players that did not practice today, plus a whole slew of limiteds. and a few guys who went full that are dinged up, as including the aforementioned Cousins and wide receiver Drake London with a hip. So they're banged up. It'll be interesting to see how that factors into things. Nope, I don't see Pitts, Rodney, on the injury report. So for what that's worth. But we're at the 20-minute mark. Should we take a look at the head-to-head? Should now be the time?
Yeah, we're
As you
putting
guys
up
know,
for Pearl right now. Favorite time of the week.
exactly. We're going to go head-to-head and examine these two teams side by side. And let me get to the sheet, and let me get that off the screen so it's easier for everybody to see. Okay. So as we scroll here, we scroll. Come on, sorry. All right, here we go. So a green designation, statistically, that's top 10. If it's red, it's bottom 10. If black, it's in between. So 5-5 versus 6-4. Broncos are -1 still, Zach, in the turnover differential. The Falcons are -2. So they're neck and neck in that in terms of rankings. Broncos 19th, they're 20th. But look at that time of possession chasm. I mean, it's only less than a minute, but look at how the rankings change, right? So the Falcons are ranked 26 with a 28.5 minutes possession per game. Broncos at 29 and 11. That's what separates it in the rankings. But if you look at the offense here, the Falcons with Kirk Cousins at the helm, it was a little creaky getting started maybe the first week or two, but they've kind of found their footing, some excellent skill positions. Net yards per game, this is the 5th best offense in the NFL. Points, though, they're kind of middle of the pack, 23.8. That's good for 13th. As far as passing, Zach, this is the 5th ranked passing offense. So this is one of those games where the wherewithal and the mettle of the Broncos passing defense, that secondary, will be tested. 8 interceptions, middle of the pack. Only 4 fumbles, though. That's in the 10th fewest. So total giveaways, they have 12. Kirk Cousins, though, only been sacked 20 times. That's tied for the 9th fewest. Meanwhile, Bo Nix, that's the only green distinction for the Broncos statistically, Zach, is Bo Nix still very stubborn about getting sacked. And he did take 2 ugly sacks last week. I mean, what did he lose? 16 and 17 on those 2 different sacks. But the Broncos, 24th in yardage, scoring, they're 22nd with just under 20. We'll call it 20 points a game. Rushing, they're 20th. Passing, they're still a low-volume passing offense, but that has improved dramatically in the last month. Nix is consistently, anyway, over 200 yards passing. But when you have one game, for example, Zach, this year where you only passed for 60, that puts you in a little bit of a hole relative to the rankings. But he's only been picked off 6 times. But the Broncos have a lot of fumbles, which offsets that, unfortunately. So total giveaways 13, which is 1 more than the Falcons. And then look at this last thing, and then I'm serving it over. 3rd down, the Broncos are the 23rd ranked offense. It's improving slightly each week, but still not by enough leaps and bounds. The Falcons are the 18th ranked 3rd down offense, and then Broncos are 21st in the red zone. The Falcons, Zach, are 15th.
Yeah, I saw Ralph's comment. Ralph, I really don't care now, honestly. I'm not going to cry because because Darnell Mooney might not play and Kirk Cousins is a little banged up. If the Broncos have an advantage, so be it. You can only face the people who are in front of you. I feel like, though, Chad, the Broncos stats are marred a little bit by how bad they were the first 5 or so weeks. I saw something since October. Bo Nix's average yards per attempt and per completion have almost doubled. So I'm going to just focus on the Falcons for a second. This is a very talented team, and Kirk Cousins is still a very good quarterback. They can beat you a lot of different ways. That's why the passing game with Drake London, they have Kyle Pitts, they have Ray, they have Algier and Bijan out of the backfield. You could do a lot with those type of weapons. I wish the Broncos would have. It's a whole other story. So like we've been saying, just because the Broncos should beat them doesn't mean they can take them lightly. This is still going to be an imposing challenge for the Broncos D, and they have to come correct.
Speaking of defense, the Broncos still have a lot of greenery. 5th in yards, 4th in points, 7th in rushing. That's good to see him climbing in the rushing and passing. Both are in the top 10. Still 2nd in sacks with 35, and then 4th in red zone percentage, the Broncos defense. Meanwhile, you look at the Falcons, and this is like inverted. It's almost similar to what we see on the Broncos offensive side, except they don't have 1 green ranking. They're close a little bit on interceptions, but they're the 24th ranked yards per game defense. Points, they're 20th, so that puts them near the bottom 10. Passing yards, they're 24th. They have 7 picks, which is the same number as the Broncos, but only 3 fumble recoveries. And then they only have 9 sacks. This is something that Scott laments quite a lot covering the Falcons on our sister site on Sports Illustrated. They just really struggle manufacturing anything resembling a pass rush. Third down, they suck. They can be had on third down. So this is one of those games where it's like, hey, Bo Nix, Sean Payton, if you guys can't figure out how to cut the mustard against this third down defense, man, that'll be sorry. And they're middle of the pack, Zach, on red zone.
Yeah, they don't do a lot right. They have a good safety duo with Simmons and Bates, Terrell at quarterback, a couple of decent players up front, Caden Ellis and Anderson, who I believe is a little banged up right now, but they can't get to the quarterback. They can't get off the field on third down. They can't really stop the pass. They can't really stop anything. So what we were talking about earlier, this is another setup type game for Bo Nix, just like the Carolina or Saints game was, or even the Raiders game was, that they should have a breakout. I saw Phil say earlier, 17-10. I'll be happy with a victory, but if they only score 17 against this defense at home, coming off 2 losses, that's a little bit of a panic button for me.
Good points, though. Special teams, I mean, a quick look, nothing to really write home about on the Falcons. 70% from field goal. Wow. Broncos took some hits in that department, by the way, with technically 2 missed kicks in last week's game because you had the missed 60-yarder and then, of course, the block kick at the end. So he went from having only 1 miss to now technically he's got 3 on the season. Will Lutz. But we're still doing well in punt returnage, and we're still doing well in covering kickoffs. Not much to see there for the Falcons at any of those marks. And then penalties, yep, the Broncos are still the flags, they fly if the Broncos are on the field. But look at this, Zach. Very similar for the I mean, you're talking about a differential of what, 7 total penalties between these two teams when you combine their opponents and their own. So they like to throw the flag, maybe a little more than that. I don't math well, but both teams, the refs like that yellow laundry.
Yeah, we're covering special teams, so I want to give a quick shout out to Mike Westhoff, who resigned as the Broncos assistant head coach and special teams czar. He was dealing with a health issue, some vision-related concerns, and he stepped down from his role. Sean Payton talked about it today. So I hope he's doing well, and he's probably permanently retired now for good reason. He's a football lifer. So shouts out to Mike Westhoff for what he's done. And let me just rant for a second because of penalties, Chad. I went back and watched the Brandon Jones penalty against my freaking God. That, they really can't beat the allegations, Kansas City, that they have the NFL in their hip pocket when every single time at the most opportune moments they get a flag or a non-call in their favor. It was absolutely egregious.
Agreed. Just real quick, I just want to take a peek here at some player stats here in comparison. So Caden Ellis leading the way with 88. Brandon Jones still Denver's leading tackler, but Cody Barton's starting to close the distance there. Sacks, Nick Benito leads with 7. Cooper with 6.5. You got 2 guys at 5, and Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers. Jarrett with 2.5. Judon only has 1.5, so that's that low sack production. Interceptions, Surtain leads with 3. See, look at this. This is backwards maybe over here, Scott. So once again, we have some weird typos on these sheets, but just looking at receiving yards. So this is what we're talking about. Mooney, all right, he's got an Achilles, didn't practice or was limited, pardon. London, look at this production. He's in question. He'll play. The real one here is Mooney. Is he going to play? And then Kyle Pitts. So, I mean, when Kyle Pitts is your 3rd most productive receiver on an offense, like that's a talented skill position group. Meanwhile, Cortland Sutton starting to build some momentum here. Zach, he actually has a plausible chance at 1,000-yard season with 7 to go if Bo Nix and Sean Payton can devise him getting the ball. But Javonte Williams is your 2nd leading receiver. I mean, it blows my mind with Vele at number 2. And by the way, Josh Reynolds, they started the clock on him, designated him to return. So Expect to see him on Sunday. And then rushing, Pookie's still leading the way, 388, but Robinson has 748, doubled. He's got that doubled. And then yardage, Nix has 19. We'll call it just shy of 2,000 yards. Cousins, 2,600, Zach.
Watching this game is going to be a little depressing for me because they have so much talent, the Falcons do, that I wish the Broncos had. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan. Look at their backup running back, Tyler Algier, who can do it all. He could be a starter for 30 other teams. He has more rushing yards than the Broncos leading rusher and the Broncos second leading rusher. That's their backup. So you wonder why they're hanging in there. The Falcons are at 6-4. You wonder why their offense ranks so well, because they just have a glut of talent.
All right. There's your head-to-head for week 11. Scott's saying here, hey, don't be surprised if it's only 17 points because the Broncos may have 4 drives that consume 40 minutes.
I'll take it.
Yeah, dude. So, all right. We're doing pretty good, though, on time. We're at 30 minutes. So let's grab this from Cody, who says, Russ isn't a future for any team. Good luck trying to get 6 to 10 years out of him, let alone another 2 or 3. All stand behind Bo, an actual future quarterback. Yeah, and look, I don't have any hate for Russ. Like, I want to see I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch too far to say I want to see him go out there and kill, but no, I do. I want to see him succeed if it's still possible for him. He's a good guy, and didn't work out for him in Denver. Go have some success, but that's not what I'm focused on, Zach, because lo and behold, Bo Nix is a thing. He polished off in his first opportunity after winning NFL Offensive Rookie of the Month, Zach, to be named the Offensive Rookie of the Week. These are signs. These are strong harbingers and indicators that the Broncos are very much on the right path with Bo Nix. So this might be one of those seasons, Zach, where we're once again hovering around. It's close but no cigar because, as you saw with the Falcons there, some of those skill position players, I mean, dude, that can be a huge difference maker. And the Broncos are going to have the resources to really build that nest around Bo Nix next year. So if they can be this viable in 2024, Zach, imagine how they'll be able to do in 25.
Yeah, I try not to bring Russ up that much. I've learned in the many travels in my life that when you move on, you can't really hate because you still have emotion. That's not the opposite of loving. I'm indifferent. You know what? I'm apathetic. Whatever Russell Wilson does, good for him. If he succeeds in Pittsburgh, good. If he doesn't, oh well. I'm not sitting there, gritting my teeth because he's costing the Broncos and they're paying his salary, the dead money. It didn't work out, yada, yada. I am happier with Bo Nix than I was disappointed with Russell Wilson.
Phil says, I got a feeling Cousins won't finish this game. Our defense will pound him to the ground. They're going to have an answer for this pass rush. And first of all, you've got guys, Zach, who can win one-on-one. I mean, Nick Bonito is developing into more than just a speed rusher. Jonathan Cooper has a few tricks up his sleeve. Zach Allen can win. But you're going to see Vance Joseph have to play a little bit that chess game because Kirk Cousins, he's seen a lot. He's played a lot of ball, man. So, some of the simple things that have overwhelmed other quarterbacks aren't going to be necessarily as viable. But then again, look at what they did last week against Pat Mahomes. I mean, Pat got his, don't get me wrong. Mahomes got his when he needed to for the most part, did enough, won the game. But Kirk Cousins, not as mobile, obviously, but he's seen a lot of football. Get after him, though. Don't be shy. Send in some numbers. Just be creative, Coach Joseph.
Yeah, because he can't do something that the last 2 quarterbacks did that killed Denver, Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Kirk Cousins has zero mobility. He can't move at all. So if you make him hold the ball just a little more, it's still a timing-based offense, then he's a sitting duck and he can't move, and Benito's going to get another sack and Cooper and everyone's going to go to town. So that's the key there, is you don't have to worry about him hurting you outside the pocket. It's locking down the receivers in coverage and making him hold on to the ball that little tick more.
Okay, let's see. Ronk saying, hey, the Broncos, the no-fly zone defense will be at the game at Empower Field. They're being honored. That's, of course, really cool. And as well they should. It'll be nice to see some of those guys, and hopefully it'll give them a little bit of a boost at home. Ralph says, the DBs can handle Mooney. No worries. I said this last night, and you can take it to the bank. Broncos 33, Falcons 17. but Simmons with a pick. It would be somewhat poetic for Justin Simmons to get that interception. I mean, frankly, you know, Zach and I, we coined a term a long time ago in Justin Simmons. We call him Justin Almost Simmons. But there's an argument, Zach, to be made that the Broncos did him dirty, you know, releasing him instead of letting him be part of this, you know, rebuild, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. But trust, even though he said this week, hey, I'm always a Bronco for life. He did say that, Zach. He's going to be extra motivated in this game.
Yeah, but he's not playing Patrick Mahomes, so he won't get a pick, fortunately. Bo Nix is safe there. He's been playing decently, but again, I don't think the Broncos are losing any sleep, and I don't think they've fallen off in the secondary that much with Brandon Jones playing in place of Simmons. It'll be nice to see him at in Power Field. It'll be nice to see the new no-fly zone being celebrated, but I'm happy with who they have now in the secondary, Chad.
We got it queued up. Here's what Justin Simmons said this week with the Broncos on
back to a place where I've spent all of my career. A lot of great memories there. The fans are awesome. I have nothing but love for Broncos country. I'll always be thankful for my opportunity. That organization invested into me, extended me, and the community there embraced my family. So it's, I'll always be through and through like a Bronco for life. Those guys have always did right by me and my family. And, at the same breath, we're going there as a team with an objective to go win, get our 7th win of the season before we head into the bye. And so that's like number one focus on my mind, is being able to do that.
How old's Simmons now?
Well, let's take
looking like age is catching up to him a little bit.
Let's see. Justin Simmons is 30.
Wow.
So he's going to be 31 in about 5 days. So you could say this is his age 31 season. But yeah, positive message. Positive message. And you expect nothing less. He's a class act. Justin Simmons is a class act. Cody says, last time they honored someone, Champ Bailey was in the house, and PS2 had a huge pick 6. Yes, indeed. Typically, those alumni games, I've only seen the Broncos in recent memory that I can recall off the top of my head. There was one earlier this year, Zach. Was it Pittsburgh? Which game was it?
I think it was
Chargers.
Pittsburgh. Was it Chargers?
It was either the Chargers or Pittsburgh. They did it. Was it Shanahan that got honored? Who was it that got? Anyway, but most of the time it's a lightning rod. They rally around it. They boost. I mean, I think back, Zach, to that Week 7 game, 2015. It's the last like elite Peyton Manning passing performance as a Bronco before he got hurt. And then we know how the rest of that season ended, but holding Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to that woeful total, and that defense going ape in that particular game, that was them honoring the Super Bowl 32 Broncos in that particular game. So usually it pays off.
Yeah, it's going to bother me because I remember we touched on that specifically, that they no-showed in front of whoever they were celebrating that day. When I think back also, and was it the Lions, Chad, after DT passed, when they honored him, they absolutely curb stomped whoever they were playing with the game where they honored DT.
Well, it wasn't the Lions because when was that? That was the year before, huh?
It might not have been the Lions, but
it was December of 22 that DT passed, wasn't it? It wasn't last December.
No, it was a couple years ago.
See, and I get into this, like a lot of this stuff I have. Oh no, it was 21. Oh no, hold on. Sorry. Yeah, December 9th, 2021, age 33, RIP. Yeah. So he's coming up on, we're coming up on already the time just flies, dude. It's so crazy. It's brutal. Okay. So, hey, Ralph, catch you on the flip-flop, bro. We're happy to have you. Tell the missus we said, hey, what's up? It's all good. Zach, I want to talk to you about something real quick before we dip on out of here. This is your 2-minute warning, everybody. Zach Allen, okay? Nick Kendall had an article today writing up how he made Doug Farrar's all underrated team. He was the first name listed in the all underrated. Talked about how low PFF a lot of these, man, lazy NFL nationals that factor in, whether it's the AP, the Sporting News, to the All Pros and different whatnot, they will go look at PFF grades and they'll read PFF. And they'll go, okay, here's who we want the team to be. And yet you see Zach Allen being like ranked 60th best interior defender on the defensive line with PFF. And yet we see it with our own eyes. It doesn't match the eye test. I'll quote Nick on that. He's advocating for us to start screaming from the rooftops for more attention for Zach Allen, or else he's going to get ignored for his contributions this year.
I wouldn't be surprised, given that he plays for the Broncos, if he gets snubbed. I'll be mad about it, but anyone who knows football knows that he deserves to be an all-pro first team. That's how good he's playing. I mean, hopefully he gets it, Chad, but those who know. That's my opinion on Zach Allen. Tremendous player.
Just make it undeniable, Zach. Make it undeniable. I don't think he's done that yet. I'll be honest. Like, I think he's been really, really good, but has he made it undeniable? No, he hasn't. There is that plausible deniability. Go make it undeniable. And Nick's argument there was, yes, he has. He's just played an inordinate number of snaps relative to defensive linemen. Like, that he's being measured against, they're playing 2/3 less snaps than he is, for example. He just doesn't come off the field. But hey, go make it undeniable. Make some splash plays. Not only get some sacks, Zach, but let's see a strip. Let's see a tip that's picked off. Something that really thrusts you into the eye in the conversation. Phil, this should be a game, Broncos-Falcons, where Bo Nix and whoever should have great running yards. Yeah, I mean, what do we see on the defense for the Falcons? I mean, we're talking about the 20th ranked rushing defense, Zach.
Yeah, one more point about Zach Allen, too. He's also being hurt by playing for a middling team. The Broncos are still just kind of in the background. If they were 8-2, though, or had like the shine of the Lions or Ravens or Chiefs, I think it would be a slam dunk for Zach Allen, but we'll see on him. Phil, I understand what you're saying. I believe, though, every time this season when Bo Nix led the Broncos in rushing, they ended up losing that game. So the whoever part matters more here. Hopefully Javonte or Estime can get the rock going and keep Kirk Cousins and that Falcons offense off the field.
Pro 16, will Drew Sanders play this week? This is a good question because as they've been bringing him back, last week he was limited. This week, Zach, he's been full. So the signs are indeed pointing to Drew Sanders returning this week.
Yeah, they'd have to free up a spot for him because he's on PUP still, but I think they'll do that if they want to play him. If not, Ellis and Benito and Cooper are playing fantastically. Appreciate you, The Ronk, saying great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Appreciate you, Michael, as always, sir.
Yeah, love you, Ronk. All right, we got a few messages for you guys, then we're going to dip on out of here.
I can't believe 42 minutes has flown by as usual. Another tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, follow us on X at the MHH pod. You can follow us on X at Mile High Huddle for the main account. Chad's at Chad and Jensen. I'm at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Shouts to Dylan Von Arks helping us out, moderating the chat, reminding everybody what Zach just said. Likes are especially crucial, guys. Hit us with those likes. All right, a Mile High salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight, helping us keep the lights on, like the Papa Bear, like Sam Bam, like Max up in Canada. Keep it coming, Max. You could become a Super Chat superstar yet. The Duchess, Michaela Parker, Zeus McPeak, Phil McLaughlin on Facebook, Eric Flynn on Facebook, The Ronk on Facebook, Lawrence Rivera, Cody Dubb, Ralph Bracegirdle, Let's see. That covers everybody. So much love and respect, guys. Have a great finish to your week. Zach and I will be here at a normal time, relatively speaking, because Broncos are home. They're kicking out round 2, and so we'll be going live for the gut reaction in the immediate aftermath. So can't wait.
And look out for our roundtable predictions tomorrow to see how we feel about the game. Have a great start to your weekend. We'll see you Sunday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.